Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We have two terrific poets with us today, Michelle Bidding and Alexis Rhone Fancher. Michelle will read first and then Alexis. Michelle Bidding is the author of 5 poetry collections, Good Friday Kiss, winner of the inaugural DeNova First Book Award, Notes to the Beloved, which won the Sacramento Poetry Center Book Award, The Couple Who Fell to Earth, Broken Kingdom, winner of the 2018 Catamaran Poetry Prize, and Nightmares and Miracles, to Sylvia's Press 2022, winner of the Wilder Prize, and recently named one of Kirkus Review's 2022 Best of Indie. Her chapbook, Dummy Ventriloquist, is forthcoming in 2023. Bidding is a lecturer in poetry and creative writing at Loyola Marymount University. Here's a marvelous poet, Michelle Bidding.
Thank you so much. What a great introduction. And here I am in my office at Loyola Marymount. It's the best place to come and be here with you. And always a joy to be reading with my dear friend, Alexis Rhone Fancher. So what I'm going to do, Harry, is I'm going to begin with some kind of love poems to my family. And let's see, I had them here a second ago. Let's see if I can pull this up again. Sorry, everybody. Sometimes they disappear just when I had them ready to go. Let's see, there they are. Okay, so this is a poem that's coming out in Dummy Ventriloquist next year, and it was in Clymer magazine, and it's called For Phil. All day we've bent like Benedictine monks over armoires and bookshelves, rubbing the house clean of grime and wicked thick dust, pausing but once to drop our robes and oil each other bright as snakes entwined in the grass of our sun-bolted bed. You never left me or the strange world of my childhood I carry like a mourner on my back, never quite able to set the black box down and leave it behind without turning back to turn it around. 3 decades I've waited to jump the suicide train, my family tracks like a runaway beneath coastal starlight. A Southern Cross I note and bind in books, stretched from ghost smoke, like a cigarette I wish I had, but I'm trying not to do that because I like my body when it's with your body. 2 strands of the same high voltage cable holding me damp and sparking day or night against the green skin of the dark. This poem is for my son, Emmett, and it's from Nightmares and Miracles. This is the cover. He also did the cover. And this is a poem that we went off together. He's an artist and a filmmaker and an animator, about to graduate from UCLA Theater, Film, and Television. And sometimes we go off on these retreats and create together. And I wrote this poem when we were up at Lake Arrowhead. And I think this is a good poem to read right now in light of everything that's happening in this country. He's a transgender male. And this is the epigraph for this, for my son post-top surgery. And it comes with a line from Hart Crane, the poet Hart Crane. And so she comes to dream herself the tree through a window in winter. The sycamore has shaken off its leaves, sheared and smooth, the trunk festooned, stained a pale and subtle tea color, shape of party balloons. What a pleasure, says our son, to take in rain and light unfettered. What joy to glide 2 palms down denuded plains. No slalom or mogul riot, no commotion of dun or verdant peaks. An honest presence, bathed and beamed in overflow of moon. A baby could drink and drink, launched from its mother realm that way, shivering and perfect. O tree, O bare and startled beginning. They say, you're not supposed to write a poem about pets or animals that you've lost, but it's always fun to try and buck the the rules, right? And so this is a poem that I wrote after we lost our dog Charlie, and it's called The Unmaking. Where brightness goes to die, after years of settling its joy in our lap, the husk of all we prized and carried, just as my son clutched that 4-pod warmth in his hope-stripped hands, surrendering our furry bundle in an old blue baby blanket, dachshund, beagle, chihuahua, mutt, the dwindling fruit of his ruined heart, driven to the Mercy Hotel in the dead of night because the suffering we could no longer abide, and so passed on to the doctor at the All Hours Clinic, a kind, white-coated vet who nodded a solemn, "You're doing the right thing," after I stammered, "Maybe a different medicine?" The twin neithers of her eyes meeting mine, silence dropping its dirty oars, breaking the human surface, rowing us closer. Who asks for this? My son's beggar hand finding me, our palms salt rivers twining, reading each other, our run over prayer, completing the circle as we turn to find the door, the lot, our keys, our car, our way home in a vacant dark of dreaming streets, first pocketing his collar, some paperwork, how sweetly he looked at us as the last light left. And that poem also was from Nightmares and Miracles. I like to write a lot of sonnets, and sometimes they're love poems, sometimes they're political, sometimes they end up being kind of a combination of the two. This one is called Nocturne Sonnet, and it's for my husband, and it kind of riffs a little bit on the great oldie Autumn Leaves. Nocturne Sonnet. I can see you through the kitchen's steamed up window, but you can't see me here in the dark. Not my moon sheened arms like Victorian candles, sparking when rats rustle the bushes, not the crickets weaving ghost crowns about my head, watching you plunge your fists into a sink's rust dome, erasing dregs, the headless crusts of fish, Brussels sprout flecks and basil dip that studded each plate until you made them shine again. When smoothed and padded planets align like children in their KitchenAid rack, the gloss of life cracks and dies even in its greening, even as days tower gold and long, and I hear old winter song, the went away of reddening hours, the stay of love, but most of all, my darling, most of all, when autumn leaves start to fall. So I used a few of the words and phrases from the song in there as well. And that one is included in Dummy Ventriloquist, which is coming out next year. So I'm going to shift just a little bit here, and I'm going to read a little bit of a longer poem, prose poem piece. And it's my homage to the long tracking shot in film, which I absolutely love. I've just always been kind of a little obsessed with that. And of course, you can find that used and nodded to and referenced and re-envisioned in many films. But of course, the kind of standout one that I think of when I think of the beginning, the origin of the use of this method, this skill in filmmaking is from A Touch of Evil, Orson Welles. So this is a poem that I wrote. And I wanted to see if I could sustain the poem and, go through a whole experience, right, from beginning to end that somehow came back together in this cohesive way. And it's kind of a coming of age puberty story of mine as well. So I hope you like it. A Touch of Evil. And there's an epigraph. Orson Welles. If you want a happy ending, that depends, of course, on where you stop your story. I heard that, Harry. Why pretend its wicked fingertip hadn't already found me that summer I was 12 and friendless between schools, lost in my awkward body and psyche, a war of worlds waged by gland and raging corpuscles running dialogue between my legs and brain's jejune tragedies. And why not join the community theater? Young talent aspiring to be seen, wannabes signed on as juvenile background for the ersatz San Juan Hill street scenes of West Side Story, even though, like the famous opening tracking shot in Orson Welles' late noir gem that goes on and on without edit, from the close-up of a ticking bomb tucked into the trunk of a 56 Chrysler convertible, to the moment 3 minutes later when the newlyweds kiss and the car goes up in flames just beyond a border checkpoint, even though that was filmed in Venice, California, near the beach, and not in a Mexican town called Los Robles, out of which Chuck Heston emerges with faux black mustache, metal badge, bad accent, and last name Vargas. It's all a matter of illusion and suppression of people dying to be in America. And I, too, am an imposter from the west side of Los Angeles. And while I may be green, I know what it is to both bully and be bullied, the spiteful inner derangement that comes from that. So I figure I'll spend the summer where no one knows me and try to find a self while ogling grown-up actors who keep falling in and out of love and in and out of bed with each other from what I can gather at my invisible edge of the commissary cart and overheated wings of Barnum Hall, where the hopeful neophytes gather to swoon and hiss at each other like bust-open fire hydrants in a mid-city heat wave. That is, when they're not called to kick a leg up or empty their lungs of song on cue under the hot stage lights as the sun grows long in tooth, only to get yanked at the end of Doggy August, which is the nature of love, I'm gathering, while doing my best not to fall off a labyrinth of catwalks and rails I've been assigned to clamber and scale like a gangly little bug alongside union grips and gaffers, as I am but a casting dot in the play's human scenery, and so not called much to rehearse. But Michael, the master flyman who makes the scenery soar and takes his job very seriously, while also maybe being a bad boy, I'm thinking, I'm not sure. But all those guys have tons of tats and pull up to the parking lot mornings, a little worse for wear, red eyes, leathers, and Harleys. And no one will dispute the theater is a dangerous place with its web of intricate beams in the wizard dome overhead, but out of sight where the magic strings get pulled, where suddenly the backdrop of a high school dance turns dress shop interior or vertiginous maze of windows, bricks, and fire escapes, thanks to the perfectly balanced system of ropes, C-clamps, and pygmy weights, the dangling lanterns that weigh 50 pounds and will take your head off if they fall on you. But Mike, whose eyes match the butterfly blue of the SoCal sea on a Venice postcard, ocean I grew up in, and also there's his wicked grin and billowing brown locks and a mustache that's a bit like Chuck Heston's in the flick I mentioned about murder and mayhem, which is how my insides feel most of the time. And maybe Mike senses this and knows what I need is some controlled burn, so to speak, a taste of managed danger, so I can better relate to the ticking clock inside, so it doesn't detonate all at once or until I say, because I'm controlling the shot and I'm the director of me and I can stretch this out and continue to show up every day in my cheap, ill-fitting bell bottoms and dumb floral tees from JCPenney's, ready to climb higher and higher and one-handed even. Yes, I am clutching each rung for dear life under my sweaty pubescent armpits because they've tasked me with ferrying sustenance to the gaffers in the gallery, caddies of coffee and donuts from Winchell's, all the way up through the ropes and cables, the battens and pipes, the mid-travelers and fire curtain, up through the hellish swelter and moats that make me sneeze, and I have to stop and catch my breath sometimes and not look down or think about the rats in the massive deco walls, so that when I reach the top and give over the doughy and liquid goods, all I can do is roll my shaking fetal self onto the grid deck and fly tower summit, dizzy and more alive than I ever, like I just grew a few inches or years. And Mike has a look of the devil about him. I mean, if my parents could see me, they'd have him arrested for child endangerment, I'm pretty sure. But I don't care because I've let that girl go, dropped her down to doll, to dust, to ant on the boards 100 feet below, and I'm gasping a little when I hand Mike his styrofoam of brew and sticky maple twist, and when he peels the plastic white lid away and peers across the steam, sipping, his blue eyes slice through me, and I know I've done something holy. I could be in heaven. And then his head ticks to one side like a timer, and his smile clicks into place, and the silence around us explodes when he says, "You made it, kid. And look at that. Coffee's not just hot, it's on fire."
Oh, oh my God.
So yeah, that's no stops in that one. That's my long tracking shot of a poem. Okay. So I think I mentioned that I'm working on, and I'll just say this quickly, and I don't have a lot of time left. So I'm working on a novella. It has to do with my great-grandmother, Beryl Mercer, who was a famous character actress in turn of the century in London, early London, Broadway, played a lot of voice parts. She was 4'11". My grandmother, whose voice I'm writing through imagining into the novella, the parts that are in the past. It's a lot of it's in the present too with myself. So it's sort of this convergence of characters and stories. And her name is Beryl Mercer. And I'm going to read a poem and then a little character description. Obviously, I'm not going to read pieces of the novella, but I've also written some sort of placer, preamble, hotspot poems to kind over the years too. And a couple new ones last year before I started to write the longer novella in Flash, which is now becoming more of a novel. And I'd say they're sort of short chapters and some flash chapters. So here's the little description of it. So you have an idea of what I'm working on. After her brother commits suicide, a Los Angeles poet investigates the underpinnings of success and tragedy in shared family history by entering a dialogue with the ghost of her great-grandmother, Beryl Mercer, an acclaimed character actress. Both women hail from pandemic-inflected eras. Both are challenged by patriarchal structures and the chronic mental illness and substance abuse of male family members in their respective domains. They comb political, familial, and entertainment industry landscapes, conjuring an offbeat Holmes-Watson dynamic in homage to the narrator's lifelong adoration of Beryl and her cousin Basil Rathbone's famous turns in the 1930s detective series. Beryl is a genre-flexing fiction that shows how two women born 100 years apart can examine and reveal a truth together. So here's a little poem. In my great-grandmother's grave, channeling Holmes. Somewhere in the lots of Forest Lawn Cemetery, your ribs are disintegrating to inscrutable gray dust. It's cold in your coffin of black shellac, our satin carton, our airless island of no escape. The trees keep weeping, and we've got work to do. Houdini, with his winched pirouettes, won't wriggle past these terminal locks. Who puts keyholes in coffins anyway? I want to burgle the dead. You've got trick jewels, and I know it. But my eyes without light have no clue. I'm on a trail, and the crimes are green, bloody, lucrative, manly mainly. On paper, lapidary when exhumed. The mind shaft always shows. Glow, I wish I could, and have cooked you something nice before you died. I don't know your favorites, but I could guess. Feed myself into boots of houndstooth and imagine steamed puddings. You were English. Some tapas of braised tongue with spiced aioli, part of you Spain. Drips of absinthe for dessert. Our sleep of choice when the dream's too live and I'm still here under glass, tramping weeds from upside down, kicking dead sidewalks, the grass you keep sighing under in my elementary mind. Beryl, Los Angeles, 1931. Mother gets the heat and radio going in the Packard, tunes her mind and body in the direction of performing. This film has drinking, gambling, guns, and lovely malls who by the end are glorified prostitutes and often abused. Demeaning and hypocritical, says Mother, and that's from someone who keeps to herself and a rather conservative lifestyle. She hates people hopping on their high moral horses. She's traditional, but not a prude or a hypocrite. Maybe a little nervous to be working opposite Jimmy Cagney, though she's been tramping the boards since she was 5 years old and knows 9 languages. A serious person, and she says this role is one for the cinema vaults. She barely sleeps at night, and now she's guzzling coffee from the silver Javalia thermos that Noel Coward gave her back in New York when she was on Broadway. That's a long while ago, but not as long behind as her sad marriage to Lord Paisley and my half-sister Marjorie, abandoned to relatives in rural England. It's more than Mama can bear to think about, so she concentrates on my driving her to set and finishing the film. She's muttering lines under her breath again, and it's not even sunrise. The moon is a shiny ball, a goddess face guiding us. The light of Jesus, Mother says. She's a believer, but not traditional religious. It's a challenge getting her in and out of the passenger seat of this giant car, if not for the fancy running board. She's gotten mileage out of being short, but it can be trying. And she's no glamour girl, a bona fide character actress since way back, playing those boy parts on the London stage. Still, being a buxom siren gets you respect in this town, or lusted after, says Mother, and quickly adds, then they seek to destroy you. Her voice goes quiet, anger stiffened, an oil well of tears ready to erupt. Your father was never... No matter how much she stops, waves her hand in the air like she can't be bothered or she's brushing gnats from her face. With her ocean liner hips, squat stature, the big brown spigots of her eyes, sagging jowls, pursed lips, dark hollows, that glum faraway look, as one journalist put it. The long-suffering matriarch description sure fits. Huddled in the half dark of her seat, mouthing words like she's praying or a crazy person. Her gaze fixed road forward. Where does she go? Back to her family in England? The child she left there? Or my sickly brother who never made it past a New Jersey hospital crib? Maybe she's thinking about the old apartment behind Musso and Frank when there was still hope for father's return. Maybe all ghosts are there in her mind as she hunkers down at the restaurant's dark paneled bar with Garbo, Hepburn, Pickford, and leaning into the microphone of her skewered olive, tells them how it really was, just how thirsty a girl could get.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Were you going to say something? Go ahead.
No, that's it. Thanks for listening.
But thank you. Your poetry is just marvelous. You have so much love and compassion in you, and you have such a great memory, and you're so eloquent. I mean, I could listen to you for forever. You're great, so appreciate that.
Thank you.
You succeeded in that long tracking shot too.
Oh, good.
Is that one sentence?
Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, there are some semicolons and dashes and commas and stuff, but that's the idea. And I did not know I was going to be able to bring it back to the bomb in the trunk. So I was really happy about that. Right? The surprises that we love when we're writing.
Thank you once again for such a marvelous reading, Michelle. You're great.
Welcome. My pleasure.
Our next poet is Alexis Rhone Fancher. Alexis Rhone Fancher is published in Best American Poetry, Rattle, Hobart, Verse Daily, Plume, Tinderbox, Cleaver, Diode, the American Journal of Poetry, Spillway, Nashville Review, Poetry East, and elsewhere. She's authored 8 poetry collections, most recently Erotic, New and Selected 2021 NYQ Books, Brazen 2023 NYQ Books, and Duets, an illustrated ekphrastic chapbook collaboration with poet Cynthia Atkins, published by Harbor Editions. Alexis's photographs are featured worldwide, including the covers of the Pedestal magazine, Witness, Heyday, and the Mass Tequila Review, a multiple pushcart prize and Best of the Net nominee. Alexis is poetry editor emerita of Cultural Daily. Here's a magnificent poet, Alexis Rhone Fancher.
Oh, thank you, Harry. That's a very lovely introduction. Michelle, your work is exquisite, and the Barrel book, sign me up. I want 10 copies to give to friends. All right. The book that I'm going to be reading from today is called Brazen, which is up there. It's backwards for me, which is actually my 10th book, I think. And it's kind of erotic and it's kind of reflective. I'm going to read a few poems from it and we'll see how it goes. The first poem I'm going to read is called Grab Shot. It reflects on my parallel life as a photographer, and it is written to a very special poet, actor, model friend of mine who shall remain nameless, and it's called Grab Shot. You Ferrari, baby, you Lotus Elan, you dream man, smooth moves, always some sleek bitch on your arm, and me side-kicking, just afterthought. So I shoot you, replicate you in oversized prints spread out on my bed like facsimile. Those blown up biceps, fine-tuned torso, face up on my pillow, your perfect pores. How the camera loves you, baby. Those smoldering Billy D shots aimed at a woman's vulnerability. How you juice them, seduce them, your voice dropping an octave when a woman calls and you get all very white. You've kept up the upkeep, changed the oil, sleek, tuned, you Alpha and Romeo, baby, you candy apple, you metal fleck. The wind buffs glitter all around you. That night at my studio, after one too many Hennessy, we stand toe to toe and I turn my lips to yours, ask, why not me? You grab my ass with two hands, squeeze and shrug. Baby got no back. And I flash to that chorus line of slow-eyed beauties you bedded, each one bottom heavy, riper than I could ever be, as if derriere were the measure of a woman. Let's get back to work, you say. You rev up your engine. I flick on the lights. Oh, baby, you shimmer, you gleam. Stand up, I tell you. Pull the shirt over your head. Now you can't see me for real. You who can't see the beamers for the beaters. You who wouldn't know love if it bit you on the ass. All right. This next one is called She Says Stalker, He Says Fan. And it comes with an epigraph. If you can't be free, be a mystery. Rita Dove from Canary. She's a singed torch song, a broken chord, the slap shadow between superstar and the door. She's that long stretch of longing, riding shotgun from nowhere to LA, a bottle of Jack Daniels snug between her thighs, always some fresh loser at the wheel. She's the Zippo in your darkness, a glimmer of goddess in your God-forsaken life. Her voice a rasp, a whiskey-tinged caress. She gets you, and you know the words to all her songs. Follow her from dive bar to third-rate club, clapping too loudly, making sure she makes it home. She's as luckless in love as you are, star-crossed, the pair of you, in your dreams. If only we could choose who to love. Tonight, the bartender pours your obsession one on the house, dims the lights in the half-empty room as she walks on stage, defenseless, but for that 0018 Rosewood Martin she cradles in her lap like a child. If you ask nicely, she'll end with the song you request night after night about the perils of unrequited love. You'll blurt out your worship into her deaf ear while her fingers strum your forearm and her nails break your skin. Give the lady whatever she wants, you'll tell the barkeep. Like that's even possible. All right. This one's kind of dark. It's called Domestic Violence. Knives cut both bread and breasts, he warns. The stilettos steal up against my trachea. A love tap. I'm used to it. I don't react anymore. I bake. I knead, pound the dough instead of him. Each day when he leaves for court, those $2,000 suits camouflaging his viciousness, a reprieve. I envision his face in the smacked down dough, push out the air pockets, dream of suffocation. I slap him, punch him, only to watch him rise. While he proofs, I look for loopholes, binge watch forensic files. It's endless stories of stymied desire, hour after hour of scheme and kill, each murder more gruesome, honed. I take notes, stick in a sieve to see if he's done, plot that he comes to a similar bad end. I shape loaves like alibis, knife notched before they go into the oven, frenzied jabs and slices. I sharpen the blade, ready for his return. Like him, I'll never speak without a lawyer present. It's from a series I'm working on about domestic violence. Something a little lighter, perhaps. This one's called The Best Place to Cry in LA. And there's an epigraph at this one as well. It's only change, and change is good. Louise Hay. Grand Central Market was a good place to cry, back when women wept over a fragrant cantaloupe, ripped a pineapple's leaves from its body, testing for ripeness, keened at the sight of a single rotted lemon at the bottom of the bin. Things change, my lover shrugs over pupusas at Sarita Salvadoran. Stop crying. Even when we're breaking up, he's telling me what to do. You'll find someone better, he says, like change is good and good men easy to find. Like Grand Central Market, gentrified, is an improvement. The mom and pops as dead as our love. Nudged out by upscale eateries, artisanal cheese shops, oyster bars, no longer a cheap respite from downtown's din. We locals priced out of the market. Now it's a tourist destination. That's something to cry about. When I tell him I too can change, my lover suggests a complete renovation. Lose some weight and you'll be more attractive, he prescribes. Take a night class, improve your mind. For God's sake, stop being so needy. He's done, but I dawdle at Sarita's counter, blue as their neon decor, eat another pupusa, ponder my propensity for loss. Stop crying, my lover says, heading for the exit. No one cries here anymore. It's always sunny in LA. Thank you. Let's see here. This one's kind of naughty. Actually, one of my favorites, and it was nominated a couple of years back for Best of the Net, as I recall. It's called Power Play. When my lover tells me I cannot say no and I protest, she parts my legs, says, yes, baby, yes. I do what I'm told. No becomes a foreign country. I take it as permission, open season. So when the waiter asks if there'll be anything else, I peruse his menu. I'm stuffed, but I say yes, cram my mouths with macaroons and chocolate. And when the Lyft driver seduces me in the rear view, eyes me like prey, asks, may I kiss you? I say yes. And when the long-legged woman I've long lusted after at the gym wonders aloud if I'm single, asks me to dinner and a movie, I say yes. And when she invites me into her bed, what can I say but yes, yes, yes? And when my fan in Nova Scotia begs me to be his muse, to sanction an explicit ode to my breasts, my ankles, my lower lip, a poem he'd never show his wife, I cannot say no to his lust and delusion. Now he wants to climb me, sublime me, shoot me full of stars. Is this what you want too, he writes, and I answer, yes. And when I return to my lover at last, and she sinks into the heady dampness between my thighs, looks up at me and asks, have you been faithful? I say, yes. All right, let's see how we're doing on time. This is one that was published in Slipstream, I think a couple of years ago. It's called Midnight in the Backyard of Lust and Longing. The saphists are at it again. Screw yous, ricochet, off our common walls, invectives landmine my window. You cheating bitch, like clockwork, the drunken Friday night climax to their ceaseless lovers' quarrel. I'll kill you, I hear the big one growl, and then the smashed plates, the screams. By the time the cops arrive, it's a full-out brawl. The two women spilling from their back door, tussling across the no man's land between their tiny backyard and mine. Worse than animals. This time it's Holly, the younger one, dragged to the patrol car, yellow hair wilding, small hands cuffed behind her back, kicking at the cops in those Daisy Dukes, an army jacket, wafting her silhouette. More clothes than she had on the last time the cops rolled up, or the time before. It's almost dawn, and the trees shiver in the fog. Raccoons slink through the tall grass. Marie, Holly's better half, paces the yard in a blue bathrobe and slippers, smoking a cigarette, sobbing as the cops jam her lover into their car. Watch your head, she cries, and flings herself across the yard, lunges for Holly through the glass. Baby, baby, she sobs, the reason for their discord long forgotten. Holly mouths a sloppy kiss. Marie opens her robe, presses herself against the glass. Can you believe it? I would do anything to be loved like that. I have two more. I think we're fairly good on time here. This is a love poem that I wrote to my husband. It's one of those poems when people ask you if it really happened. Yeah, it really did. It's called 82 Miles from the Beach. Reorder the lobster at Clear Lake Cafe. The neon flashes lobster and fresh. The parking lot is crowded. We've been driving since dawn. The lobster must be good here, you say. The harried waitress seats us near the kitchen. She's somewhere between 40 and dead. I show you the strand of her coarse black hair stuck between the pages of my menu. Undeterred, you order the lobster for two. I investigate the salad bar, yellow grease pools and the dregs of blue cheese dressing. A small roach skims the top. Before the waitress can bring the clam chowder, I kick you under the table. I'm sorry, I say brightly. We've changed our minds. I'm responsible for the look of defeat on her face. As I head out, you stop and leave a 20 on the table. I have never loved you more. How are we doing on time? I think I have a little more time left. Here's another one in kind of a longing. It's called Bad Mother. My boy died young. I was a bad mother. So was my mother. My best excuse. When she died young, I fell off the earth. Think thud, careen, not spiral. Think death wish, free for all. A blueprint the way I see it. Soupçon for self-loathing with a narcotic chaser. Lovers who'd sell me out for a half gram of coke. Not good choices. My mother threw me to the wolves, loved my sister, the easier one, and my brother more. Died when I needed her most. My dead boy sealed my fate, my only one. I pondered suicide, learned to police my head. Mind over matter, my mother said, but she never lost a child. My near fatal accident at 20, the day my little brother almost drowned. Even then, my mother had 2 spare kids. I should have had more. Let's see. I think I'm going to end with this one. maybe not. Let me see. This is the one I wanted. There was a lovely restaurant. I used to live downtown LA, and there was a lovely, lovely restaurant called the Yorkshire Grill. It was kind of a deli. And there was the most beautiful Russian waitress. And we became friends. And one day they were kicked out. The landlord was remodeling or rebuilding or something. And just like that, they were gone. And nothing was ever put in its place. This is called For the Russian Waitress at the Yorkshire Grill who reads Akhmatova on her break. She's a slow-eyed Madonna in a black uniform, refilling napkin holders, topping off salt shakers, funneling ketchup from one half-full bottle to another. I, among the faithful, come to worship at her station, always sitting in her section. I'm convinced she's secretly the Virgin of Fyodorovskaya, venerated icon of the Upper Volga, the way she must have looked first thing in the morning, brewing coffee, sans Byzantine jewels, and her heavy crown. She's the patron saint of diners, the dispenser of special orders, shimmering behind the counter, a saint tethered to the linoleum by tired booths and chipped formica. When she takes my order, I bow my head, genuflect, her tangled, familiar accent, a benediction. When she sees me eye her worn paperback peeking out of her pocket, the complete poems of Anna Akhmatova, she fingers the author's cover photo with reverence. I want to remove the pins from her hair, loosen the tight bun, let the blunt wisps fall to her chin, narrowing her high cheekboned visage. I want to worship at the pout of her lips, nuzzle at her neck's altar. I want to slip her uniform off her shoulders, bury myself in her Russianness, pull her down next to me in the booth, feed her bits of brisket, dill pickle, baklava, give her sips of my tea. You're beautiful, I'll tell her, but she'll shake her head. She has no faith in platitudes. I take her photo when she's not looking, print it as proof of faith, an 8x10 glossy, then bring it to her, an offering. I too am Russian on my father's side, I'll say. I too carry Akhmatova in my pocket. It will be the first time I've ever seen her smile. Something a little different. And we're doing maybe one more. Something. All right, I'm going to end with this one. I traveled a lot when I was a girl. My sister and I had a year off, sort of a gap year. Well, actually, we both finished college. And we came into a little money and we bought a Volkswagen camper and traveled Europe for a year. And one of the places we went was Istanbul. And I'm going to read about that. When I dream serpentine, 18, and lost in Istanbul again. It's always the dream of the elusive snake ring at the Grand Bazaar, heavy rose gold with emerald eyes. It gripped my finger, would not let go. It is for a man, the turban merchant protested, tried to snatch it back, but I loved how it encircled, insinuated itself up to my knuckle, the way the orbs glistened, the enticement of its tongue. It spoke of a jeweled feature. The merchant, impatient, wanted a decision, wanted too much. Money was tight. Adornment and invitation to be robbed in the confusion of Istanbul's perilous streets. It was a cruel century for a woman on her own. The ring, I told myself, was of no consequence, an extravagance, not a metaphor or a child. Yet my life since that decision, rudderless. The abandoned ring, a portent for each play, it's safe in my future. The uncertainty that accompanied every bad choice, each panicked dream. Tonight, I'll reconnoiter the bazaar, 18 again, only smarter, self-possessed. The ring's snake eyes will flash an SOS through the labyrinth of narrow stalls, bolts of silk and brocade, mingling with complicated carpets and incense and saffron and huge copper pots. I'll find it, I'll buy it and restart my life, erase each timidity, each dull mistake, the maze of shops and elaborate loss, a guilt trip, the scent of sandalwood in the air.
Thank you very much, Alexis. To use two words from the poem about the Russian waitress, shimmering and benediction. You have such a love of humanity, not only the love of the body, but the love of humanity. And it's just, your poetry is sensuous and it's vulnerable. And you also have such strength to tell the truth, and so that's admirable. And, I love Akhmatova and Marina Tsvetaeva, and you're right along with them, the emotions and the love that they have and the ability to bear whatever life puts upon them. You have that too. I know a little bit about you, or your poetry and the work you've done, Cultural Daily, your photography. Could you just tell us a little bit briefly about where you grew up, where you were born, where you grew up, a little bit about your early life?
Yeah, pretty standard. I grew up in Los Angeles. My parents moved here from Chicago in the middle of this last century. And so I grew up in LA. I grew up primarily in Topanga Canyon, Woodland Hills, Calabasas, way out that way. I went to school with Keith Carradine and a bunch of those kind of people. So it was kind of rock and roll and kind of dusty. Went to Taft High School in the Valley, UC Santa Barbara, degree in theater, emphasis in film, which is why I'm a poet. I did have somebody whom I really respect the other day compliment me on my persona poems. And he said how I slipped into the persona, and I never really thought about it, but I think it's because I'm a trained actor. And I know Michelle is as well, and she writes brilliant persona poems. I think we're more adept at slipping ourselves. Well, as an actor and a brilliant actor, Harry, you know what I'm talking about. You just kind of find your way into that role. All those domestic violence poems that I've been writing, I've never been a victim of domestic violence, but I can understand that. And I can put myself in that. And I think with the three of us today, all being actors, I think that's important, don't you? You're an actor and a poet, you're an actor and a poet. We've got three of a kind here. I think it comes together, right?
Yeah. Well, you also have such a deep range. I've always loved the book about your son, the loss of your son. And so the range is very large. So I'm grateful for that. Where did you grow up? Let's bring Michelle in. Where did you grow up and live in your early life, Michelle?
Well, I too grew up here. I'm fourth generation, as you might, deduced from just a little bit of what I was talking about and writing about with Beryl. So, fourth generation. Kids are now fifth generation. On my mother's side, Hungarian immigrant farmers. So she grew up on a farm for part of her life in Nebraska, Unadilla, Nebraska. And then she and my father met here in Los Angeles at UCLA. And I married to an actor. So yes, it's very much a part of our lives. We've been together 30 years, and Phil Abrams. We just have a lot of creative fire and heartache and longing and yearning and constantly making things in our family. And that seems to have been passed on to the kids too. So that's really fun. But yeah, I think what Alexis is saying is really true. And we really love that about each other's work. And that was just a spectacular reading, Alexis. Really, really, really marvelous. So and I think it's why I love writing poetry. I have to keep writing poetry, but I'm very much enthralled and needing and drawn to this work I'm doing now, which is just the more you kind of go into it and dive into it and the history and the research, and then you're imagining into it because it's fiction, but with a lot of sprinkling, dotting and anchoring of truth and history. It's just the possibilities are endless. So it's really, really fun. We seem to be keen on that, all of us.
For you two have given us such an astonishing reading today, so full not only acting but also the depth that you go into the poetry. I've been reading lately. I'm rereading To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, and so what you're talking about with your novella, reminded me a little bit about that, but in a much more modern way. But thank you both for such a great reading. And here's Jennifer Clymer, our director.
Thank you so much. Very powerful.
Good.
Before we go, we ask Harry what's coming up next week.
Next week, we have two wonderful poets, D.A. Powell and Boris Dralyuk, and they'll be here next Tuesday to read their poetry. So thank you very much, Alexis Rhone Fancher and Michelle Bidding, and thank you, Jennifer, once again.
Thanks, Jennifer.
You.
Thank you very much, Harry. It's gorgeous to see you.
And I'll be talking to you, Alexis.
Oh, definitely.